Confidence isn't something you're born with, it's something you build. And I'll show you how right now. Welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast, a podcast helping women in career and life transitions achieve clarity on their next steps so they can transform uncertainty into an energizing next chapter. I'm your host, Kavita Ahuja, and the founder of It's My Time Now Coaching. If you're wondering what's next in your career or life, you are in the right place. Through solo and guest episodes, you'll gain practical tips, tools, and inspiration to help you uncover blocks, gain confidence, and be, do, and have what you want. I rediscovered myself after the age of 50, and I know you can too. It's my time now to help you do just that. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in. Confidence is the key to reinvention, yet so many of us hold back because of self-doubt, fear of judgment, or the belief that our story just doesn't matter. But your voice deserves to be heard, and your story has power. In this episode, you will discover how the words you say, the thoughts you think, and the actions you take shape your confidence. A powerful way to retell your story through your values so you can introduce yourself with strength, not hesitation. And simple daily habits that will help you practice confidence until it becomes part of who you are. So if you've been shrinking or hiding your voice, stay with me, because by the end of this episode, you'll have tools you can use right away to stand taller, speak with clarity, and step into the next chapter with courage. Hello, my friend, and welcome back to another episode of the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. I'm your host, Kavita Ahuja, and today we are discussing our struggles with confidence. When we go through major transitions in life, a job loss, divorce, perhaps children leaving the home, or even just the quiet inner voice saying, "Is this it?" our identity can feel shaken. We often wonder, who am I really? I remember when my two boys left home, and for years, so much of my identity was tied to being their mother, showing up for them, organizing their lives, being needed every day. When they left, of course, I was still their mom, but my day-to-day identity has shifted. And I asked myself, if I'm not in that role all the time, who am I now? And I see this with so many of my clients. One woman told me, "Who would ever listen to me?" Another said, "I compare myself to others and feel like I just don't have the skills." And another whispered, "I want to become more visible, but what if it doesn't look good?" These are the quiet voices that chip away at our confidence. And the problem is, they often stop us before we even begin. But here's the good news. Confidence isn't something you either have or you don't. It's something that you can build step by step, habit by habit. So, how do we build that confidence? Let's start by talking about the words that we use. Think about how often you've said something like, "I just think," or "sorry to bother you, but," or "does that make sense?" These phrases sound small, but they do shrink your voice. They tell the world that I'm not sure of myself. Instead, imagine replacing them with these phrases. "I think this is the wrong direction," or "I look forward to hearing your thoughts." Do you feel the difference? One makes you feel smaller. The other makes you feel confident and clear. Words matter, my friend, so choose them wisely. So this week, notice your words, whether the spoken or the written word. Pick one undermining phrase that you may catch yourself using often. Pause and replace it with a strong, confident language. Go through those emails before you send them and delete the words like just or maybe and see how much more confident the message becomes. So let's now talk about our thoughts. Gay Hendricks once said, he said, we keep ourselves so tied up in regretting the past and fearing the future that we don't have any energy left to figure out who we are and what we want right now. Fear lives in our thoughts. That's the fear of failure, the fear of judgment, the fear of what will people say, and sometimes even the fear of success. When I left my corporate job, for example, I was terrified. I was afraid of failing, afraid of what people would think, and afraid of stepping into something new. It took me almost 3 years to make the leap because of those fears. But one powerful way to face these fears is to actually write them down. Journal on these questions. What am I really afraid of? Are my fears real or are they imagined? And what's the best, not the worst thing that can happen if I acted anyway? Often, when we write it down, we realize that the fear is a story that we've created in our minds and not reality. And finally, our actions can speak volumes about our level of confidence, or in some cases, our inactions can tell the story. Here are some confidence killers that I see all the time. The first is procrastination. When we say, I'll do this before that, I'll have to do this before I can do that. So, for example, I need to get one more qualification or certification before I apply for a job. The next kind of confidence killer is perfectionism. Waiting until something is flawless before you share it. Like, I can't post this article because the wording is not absolutely perfect. That just means, my friend, that your thoughts will not be shared with the world. The third is seeking approval, asking too many people's opinions instead of trusting your own. How often do you do that? And then you have so many different opinions that you don't know which one to follow. The other one is hiding, using other people's stories instead of your own. I did this for years, assuming everyone else was the expert, until I realized that indeed my voice and my story was the one worth telling. The other thing we often do is not negotiating our worth. This could be for a raise or a salary or a position, or even setting boundaries within your own family. So, do any of these sound familiar to you? What I'd like you to do is choose one of these behaviors that you recognize in yourself and challenge it this week. If perfectionism is your trap, share something before it's perfect. If you hide behind other stories, tell one of your own and notice how it feels. The words you say, the thoughts you think, and the actions you take, these are your foundation. And if you shift them, you shift your confidence. Now let's move on to something a little deeper. It's the way you tell your story. When someone asks you, tell me about yourself, most of us freeze and go straight to what is comfortable. And that is a chronological way of sharing that because it feels safe. Something like, I worked for here for 20 years, and then I did this, and now I'm in this, and blah, blah, blah. This type of storytelling can be boring and not relevant to a lot of people. But here's a problem. During transitions, chronology often makes us even falter. How do we actually confidently explain a job loss or a pause in our careers? Another more confident way of telling our story is by anchoring it in a value that you hold dear to yourself. So instead of telling your story chronologically, tell it through your values. For example, I could tell my story through chronology like this. After 25 years in the pharmaceutical industry, I realized I wasn't as fulfilled as I could be. So I left to rediscover myself and I started a coaching business and a podcast. That version is true and factual, but it kind of feels heavy and maybe even a little bit negative. If I instead anchor my story to a value I hold dear, it becomes a lot more interesting and relevant. For example, one of my values is the importance of giving others the space to be heard. If I anchor my story to this value, it becomes the following. Throughout my career, I valued creating space for others to be heard. In my previous pharmaceutical career, this meant listening to my clients and building that trust. And today, as a coach, I carry the same value forward because it means holding space for women to rediscover themselves. The value is the same, just expressed in a new way. Which story feels more confident? Which story makes me sound more aligned and interesting? So I'd like you to try this week. Choose one of your top 5 values and rewrite your story using that lens. Notice how much stronger and more authentic and more confident it feels than telling it from a chronological point of view. As Maya Angelou reminds us, there is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. Your story deserves to be told, and that through the lens of your values, not just through your resume. And confidence isn't just built in one big leap, it's built in small daily ways. Think of it like strengthening a muscle. If you go to the gym once, you don't expect to walk out toned and strong. But if you keep showing up, even for a few minutes each day, the results do compound. And the same is true for confidence. Let me walk you through a few habits that can truly shift how you show up in your everyday life. These are just some of them, and I have a 28 Days to Building Confidence guide in a PDF that you can download for free. But here are a few to discuss right now. The first is journaling and gratitude. When you put your thoughts on paper, you separate them from yourself. Instead of letting fear swirl in your head, you capture it, look at it, and decide whether it's even true. Pair this with gratitude. Gratitude grounds you, and a grounded person walks with confidence. So try this. Each day, write down one fear and ask yourself, is this real or imagined? Then list 3 things that you're grateful for. The second thing is to building a daily practice to build confidence is your posture and presence. When you're slouched, you feel smaller, but when you stand tall with your shoulders back, chin lifted, you send a signal to yourself and others that I belong here. So try this. Before a meeting, roll your shoulders back, breathe deeply, and walk in with intention. Another great habit to building confidence is to surround yourself with positivity. The people you spend time with shape your confidence. Negativity drains you, and encouragement fills you. Try this. Ask yourself, who lifts me up and who makes me shrink? Then consciously spend more time with those who see your potential and lift you up. Another tip, daily affirmations and the inner mentor. Picture the wisest, most confident version of yourself 10 years from now. What would she tell you today? Pair that with affirmations. Instead of saying, I can't because, say, I can because. An example of this would be, I can take on this challenge because I've overcome challenges before. Confidence grows through action, one step at a time. So each day, take one small action that stretches you, whether it's speaking up in a meeting, posting on LinkedIn, or starting that conversation you've been putting off. These habits might seem simple, but by practicing daily, they're transformative. As Marianne Williamson says, your playing small doesn't serve the world. Don't deny the world the contribution only you can make. So let's bring this all together. Confidence is built step by step through your words, thoughts, and actions, the way you tell your story through your values, not just chronology, and the daily habits that reinforce your worth. It's not about never feeling fear. It's about facing it, reframing it, and taking action anyway. I want you to remember this. Your story matters. Your voice matters, and the world needs your contribution. If you'd like practical daily support, I've created a confidence guide with 28 simple, actionable tips you can use today to build your confidence one day at a time. Download it today from the link in the show notes. This will be followed up by daily short video reminders for you to actually implement these confidence tips into your life today. Because, my friend, your light isn't gone. It's just waiting for you to step forward, share your story, and shine with confidence.